Welcome, everyone, to the Fractional Operator. I'm your host, Mike Nelson from Hourglass SaaS, the operations platform built for fractionals by fractionals. We really built this program because we were so tired of spreadsheets. If you're tired of spreadsheets, check out Hourglass SaaS at hourglasssas.com. Let's get to the show, though. Introducing Chris Ryan from Six Marketing. Chris, welcome to the Fractional Operator, sir.
Mike, thanks for having me on board. I'm excited. This is another podcast of yours, so I'm excited to be part of it. Appreciate it.
Yeah, podcasts are no old hat for me for sure. This is third podcast that we do on a weekly basis. So excited to be here. Excited to have you on, Chris. I think sharing some of the breadth of knowledge that you have over 20 years you've been doing this?
I've owned the company for almost 16, but I've been in this world much longer than that.
Much longer than that, yeah. Still 16 years, man. That's a nice milestone. That's a nice piece of longevity there to be able to be have a company for that long.
Different set of headaches, but yeah, that's good.
Different set of headaches. Yeah. So I want to get into that as far as like how things are changing for you, how they have changed over the years and how the headaches change. But first, why don't you kind of give our listening and viewing audience here just a overview of who you are and what Six Marketing actually does?
Sure. Absolutely. So I'm excited to be part of the fractional conversation in general. Really excited that you launched this podcast. Inadvertently, maybe this is why you invited me on, but we started as any other company, right? We were trying to be a company, and then we started as a marketing agency. And then we soon found out that people don't just want marketing. They want sales, they want leadership, they want consulting, they want product advice. So we evolved to this holistic brand where we help companies from all aspects of life and all aspects of the business. So through that journey, that's where the fractional part comes in. I started to build this fractional network of different agencies, different firms, different solopreneurs that are fractionals to just solve the problem of growth. Like, we're coming in and we're looking at revenue. How do we solve revenue? How do we design and get the right revenue in the business? How do we keep that revenue in the business? How do we expand that revenue? And then how do we find more of it? So it's all a scaling methodology, but how we do it is through a fractional ecosystem of building all of these different partners together. And we've done that for years, like a decade and a half plus. And that's where we've seen a lot of success. We want to bring in the perfect person to do the job. We're great at what we do, but we're not perfect at everything. So we want to bring in the absolute best experts that we can trust, that we can be with, and that they'll provide the most amount of value for our clients. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, and I want to dig into that because I have always viewed your model as, first and foremost, just very interesting on how you do it, right? Like, and sometimes I feel like it's hard to understand it on how you have a client, how do you work with them, who and when you bring on. So can you dig into that a little bit deeper as far as how you're presenting yourself on the onset with clients? And then how it looks for you to bring in other organizations, other people.
Sure. The model, I don't think by any means it's incredibly unique, but I think it is rare. And I think we've developed something that's interesting. So at the end of the day, like, a couple things happen. Companies hire us to grow. We started a marketing company because we're marketers. Like, that's where we learn. But marketing's not always the reason for growth. And if companies are hiring us to grow and scale and increase revenue and profit and all these fun things, you need to look at a business holistically. So we say, well, let's solve the real problem. And the real problem is growth. And it could not be marketing at all. Marketing could be 1% of the problem. There could be a litany of other problems. So having that conversation about, we look at your business from a consultancy approach. We don't just, tell you what to do and not help you. We work with you the entire way through the journey. So when I say we design revenue, we'll work with you on ideal client profiles. We'll work with you on, what are you selling to those people? Who are your best people that will come back and buy from you more? How do you find more of these people? And then we help you execute. So from the fractional play, you can plug and play anybody in our team based on the needs of the organization at that time. If you go through a different evolution of growth, then we bring in different people, like, or different options. But most people still think we're a marketing company. So again, yeah, of course, we probably have branding issues. Of course, we probably should have renamed the company not Six Marketing years ago. But people come to us for leads. And inevitably, how the conversation starts, to answer your question, is we say, that's great. You need leads. Everybody needs leads. But let's unpack that. is that the real issue, or is that just a symptom of the problem? Is there something else going on? And one of our hero stories of the last couple of years is we had a SaaS business come in, awesome product, really cool thing in medtech. They were helping, really, like, literally saving lives, and it was just really cool. And they're like doing the SaaS play, hiring dozens of SDRs, just trying to go through the old school SaaS model. And then we come in and we get behind the door. They hired us for lead generation. As soon as we got in there, we looked and did a diagnostic of the company. They were losing like 3,000 customers a month.
Oh,
These guys were a $33 million company, skyrocketed to 33 million in a couple of years. If we didn't address the churn problem, they would have closed 100%. So we said, you do not need lead generation. Again, we're asking questions, not telling, but we're like, what we think you need is, let's focus on the customer success. Like, what's going on in this world that's causing the boat to leak more than you're putting in? Through that journey, again, it's a hero story for a reason. Through that journey, we turned this company completely around to, we generate 84.8 million in 8 months top line revenue for these guys by stopping churn and then building up lead generation of the right piece. So we're doing ICP and all these other things. Doesn't really matter. But the point is, the problem wasn't lead generation, and that's what they thought it was. The problem was churn and customer success. So we can help with that. We brought in the right teams to facilitate that. That's how we come in and look at a company and like, what is the real issue that's preventing growth? What are the issues coming down the roads that you haven't addressed yet? And let's solve the real problem, guys, not the symptoms of the problem.
that's interesting, and those are some pretty good numbers.
It's
It's
a lifetime case study. We'll milk that forever, but it was really
yeah,
good.
yeah,
Yeah.
get some miles out of that one for sure. I'm just curious. Was there one underlying issue for that client that was really causing the churn?
There are several issues. So again, once, because they were a larger company, and the speed of growth was one of the problems, right?
Yeah.
They were bringing in the wrong customers, which was one of the problems why they were churning, because they weren't seeing value. Another thing is, the good old AI world, they were using AI callers, and this is a med tech company. So
Mm.
you have like, they try to adopt AI very early on, which, good for them, kudos, right? But surprise, didn't go through the governance and all the regulations that they should have. And then people are getting phone calls from AI, and it caused like a huge bucket of problem. The SDRs were trying to close anything that was happening. There were some other management issues happening there. So it was a combination of multiple factors. But once we addressed of like, let's bring the right people in the boat and let's serve the customers in the way that you can serve them best, because at the end of the day, they legitimately are saving lives with their product. And it was really cool to be part of that. They've since been acquired. So good job. See you later. So it was really good. But that's what I mean. You have a great product, you have a great service, and then you just had downstream problems that were actually an upstream root issue. Like, that was the cause of, like, they just didn't have the planning. They were just growing too fast, doing everything they could to just, stay above water because money was coming to the door. No, oh, let's get more money. Let's get lead generation in here. And we're like, no, like, if we just focused on lead generation, which most marketing companies probably would have done, that would have just added fuel to the fire. That would have sank the ship way faster than, inadvertently they didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I know that over the years I've had many conversations, and typically this is with smaller businesses that come to me and they say like I need more clients, right? I need more revenue, I need more leads. And one of the conversations I always have with them, especially with the smaller, younger businesses, is let's pretend I send you 100 leads this month. Can you handle that amount of work?
Right.
And a lot of the times the conversation is like, well, no, actually, no, I can't. And then it's like, okay, so really, and we don't get into that portion of things, but I'm like, okay, we got to fix that problem first, because when we're successful doing what you want us to do, you're going to implode because of the weight of all those leads, and you got to fix that. And it sounds like that's what your model is if that's the issue, you guys work on that and then you work on the leads.
No, your model is the same as ours. It's about being strategic and intentional to what you're doing. So you're working with them to bring in not only the right number of leads, but the right leads. You don't need thousands and thousands of leads if you're a startup.
Mhm.
You need 10, right? Go out and go hunting for 10 new leads that are good prospects because you took the time, not because you just threw something in AI, not because, everybody is telling you that you need to have billions of connections. take the time because you need to put food on the table, right? So like at the end of the day, if I can go out and pick a different couple companies, stop by their office, go old school, whatever it is. Um, yeah, food for thought. Trust me, I love AI, I love technology, I love this entire world. I just think a lot of people are circumventing what it actually takes to get business these days.
Yeah. Yeah, AI is an interesting piece of things right now, and it's funny because this morning I was thinking about, God, it must have been 2 or 3 years ago when, you, myself, and Howard sat down and we're talking about AI, and this is when ChatGPT was really, starting to become known publicly, I
Yeah.
guess is the best way to put it, right? And, I mean, I wasn't touching it at all at that point, and I just how much it's changed or changing the industries. I'm curious because there's a lot of chatter out there that AI essentially is going to kill the marketing landscape and put every marketing company out of business. Do you subscribe to that?
Not really, because I think, especially in the fractional world, you're an expert and you have the acumen to be that expert. There's still the human in the loop. So yes, AI is a distraction at this point, and it's easy to do, and it's seemingly putting really good outputs. If you do it right, it's the best thing ever. But it's still a tool. It's
Mhm.
still a tool to help the human brain. Like certainly, there's lots of conversations about when it surpasses human intelligence, but it's you still need a human in the loop. So having multiple agents and multiple humans all working together is the best case scenario. Just
Mhm.
putting something into any of the LLMs that you like and having it just trust that that's your output, it's not good. We were talking to entrepreneur organization EO. We're like,
Yeah.
what we should do? We should do a AI versus human. And despite whatever AI is going to put into a strategy document, you are going to see something. I'm going to see something. Anybody that's been doing this for a while will see something slightly different that AI didn't consider. Now, I will
Mhm.
say, if you ran that same scenario where you and I were in the background working with AI, the output would probably be even better because we're leveraging the tools. So is it going to replace jobs? It'll replace some jobs, but make yourself, indispensable. And I think the fractional market is the perfect market to work with AI because you're the experts and you're the knowledge that it needs to work appropriately.
Well, I know, for me specifically, when I'm talking to my team about AI, and we use Claude primarily, and I'll be like, "Yeah, I was fighting with Claude this morning." I feel like I'm constantly fighting with Claude because I'll have Claude pressure test something that I've created from a strategy standpoint, and it just comes up with nonsense, and then I have to like push back on it, and it's telling, it's the conversation sometimes, to your point, is if you just said, "Hey, Claude, create me a marketing program," it's gonna spit something out that probably looks like a marketing plan. But at the end of the day, it doesn't have the I don't know how to even phrase it. Like, it just doesn't have the ability to reason through some of the things that it's giving you. And then you push back and it's like, "Oh, oh, you're right, Michael. That's a great point. I should have considered that." I'm like, "Yeah, man."
Right, exactly. And it's funny because I think you said the same thing 3 years ago on the AI podcast. You were very anti AI at that point. You were
I
like,
was
I'm
very
never using this. And I said, well, we'll see. And but honestly, like you said it back then, you're like, it's not going to replace strategy. It'll put out a great marketing plan. It will inform marketers to create a better marketing plan. Like, don't get me wrong, like we leverage it all the time for ideation. We just don't trust it all the time. Like we have to build agents to fact check and do all these things in the background to make sure that like it's not just telling us what we want to hear. And unfortunately, the large percentage of people are just looking for an edge so fast that they're moving too quickly. Where if you take the time to build AI right, again, I'm a broken record here. Then that's the output that you're going to have. Like
Yeah.
it's just phenomenal when you do it the right way. It just takes time
Yeah.
and expertise.
So, to get back to six marketing, and I know one of the things that I've really liked over the years is how you guys bill yourself as a growth agency, right? Which is kind of encapsulated with what you were saying earlier. Like, we're not marketing may be a part of it, but really we're trying to grow your business and figuring out what that looks like. It Was that a pivot that you made based on feedback from the marketplace or just from a gap that you saw?
More of the gap. So because again, I never thought we were serving our customers to the best possible. just doing marketing, for instance.
Mhm.
And I'm not picking on marketers because I've been a marketer, I was just CMO. It's just the world I knew when I started out. Um, yeah. So, I mean, to answer your question, like we just said, let's solve the real problem and let's put the people in the room. And I think a lot of consultants do this, right? A lot of consultants will come in and solve one piece of the puzzle. I think the gap there is that they don't do the execution or they don't follow it all the way through, or there's like these other engagements happening. It's always like this there's always a disconnect between strategy and execution, from just being a consultant only. Not picking on consultants, we work with them all the time. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that like we're trying to connect the dots from strategy to go to market to execution, so you have this closed loop process so you can scale a business, profitably.
And so do you basically are you the conductor that is conducting the orchestra at this point for whatever problems you're trying to solve for your clients?
Yes and no. So we're not. So I think maybe the big difference is that we're advising more. So, like, when I say things like we're going to work on your ideal client profile, A, everybody thinks they have it dialed in. B, they don't. And so it takes some level of analysis, but we'll come in and we will get the information out of you. So we're go to marketers. We're big on the GTM operating system, but so there's all these frameworks and frameworks, but we will work with you to get the knowledge out of your brain. So let's just use case in point. If we're looking at ideal client, we're not just asking the marketing department or the sales department or leadership. We're asking product and service. We're asking customer success. What are you guys hearing on the ground? Because everybody has a piece of the puzzle who the true ideal customer is, not the last sale, which maybe something sales would do, not the
Mhm.
person to fill out a lead form. That would be what marketing would be focused on, not the happy customer that doesn't pay their bill, in time. Like everybody has these different nuances. And then so we're advising and we're working with teams to understand who is really the ideal customer. And then the beauty of that is all of a sudden teams that had a different perception of like where we're going and why we're going, they're now building together, right? So they come together and they have, like I said, the different pieces of the puzzle, and they're now all on board. They're all super excited. Like, this is exactly who we should work with. Because I'll tell you what, if I walk into X company and I hear this in their boardroom or this in their break room, I know that's our client because for all of these reasons we talked about. It's
Mhm.
exciting if you do it like the right way. So
So I'm curious about if you're comfortable talking with us, and you can tell me to go scratch, Chris. But I'm curious about the revenue model, right? Because I know that there are fractional operators that sometimes worry about, especially when they're smaller and they're fighting for every dollar, and they're worried about bringing in other organizations that are going to be pulling revenue out of their pocket. And so, and to be fair, I've definitely fallen into this where you're just afraid of giving up revenue. How do you manage that and balance it so that you're running a company, but you're also bringing in the best experts you can to help your clients, and then but still you're running a business at the end of the day, right? So you've got a P&L that you got to watch, and you've got to move things forward. How does that all work for you?
there's nothing wrong with functional special organizations, but I would argue that if you're fighting for all the market share or all the wallet share, like if you want all of the services, then you're a master of none. You're not going to be able to do that. So let's pretend you're epic marketers and you're coming in and you're solving the marketing problem. What happens when you solve it good enough? Like what happens when you hit a metric that the board's like, you know what? Okay, we're good now. We have a sustainable business. We're good on our recurring revenue. We're good there. Like you're probably one of the first people to get caught out,
Mhm.
as opposed to saying, why don't we solve all the problems that are going to continue? And I'm not saying that marketing is just going to go in and you can magically solve a problem. But what I'm saying is like solving revenue is not the responsibility of one function of the business. It's the responsibility of all functions of business. You
Mhm.
certainly have to pay your bills. You have your P&L. You got to put food on the table. But if you're a specialist in that organization and you're working with other specialists or specialized teams in big organizations, the value of working together continually is exponentially better, and the value to those organizations is exponentially better. So going back to I need to put food on the table, do I want to increase wallet share? That may work in the very, very short term, but I would argue that the unit economics and the lifetime value of having a client for 10 years as opposed to 10 months is a different model. Now, again, if you need 10 months of money because you're starting out, then go for the project based work, right? go for, I'm just going to go in and I'm going to focus on lead generation because there's value to that. But what I'm saying is if you want a sustainable relationship with a client or several clients, then build a system that's repeatable that you can go in there and not have to go and replace and keep putting more people in the boat on project-based level. Does that make sense, or is that like crazy?
Yeah, no, I think it does. It's as when you're to your point, right? Like when you're smaller or not even smaller, but maybe just younger as a business, you want to say yes and you want to take everything in. And I know I've talked about this recently on another show where I think over time you really do have to decide like what you're great at and do that thing, right? And start to leverage other people's resources through partnerships and things like that to say like, you know what, I suck at this. And just have that honest conversation with yourself. And I know we've been doing that as an organization the last couple of years of really being like, what do we really do that we're great at? And all this other stuff, like, we did obviously, we did photo video services for years, and we started scaling that back because it was just hard for us to do it. And to be fair, like we were mediocre at it at best. Right. But people always ask us, like, we're building the website, we're doing social media, whatever we're doing for them. And they're like, can you do photo and video? Oh, yeah, we can totally do that. And we could, but we're mediocre at it. Right. And so it was like trying to say, like, all right, we're not going to do this in house anymore. We're going to bring in a strategic partner. We're going to have people like uh, Buyer Creative, I think is who you guys connected us with years ago, and Todd Bailey, someone was just on the show, and we use him pretty often, and it just really was better for the client and better for us. But we had to like say like, okay, that part of how you phrase it, the wallet share was just something that we're gonna just not factor in and focus on increasing revenue in the categories that we're really great at. If that's I think that's in line with what you're saying.
No, it is, and I think you and I talk similar languages, so and obviously we've known each other for a while. But first, like you were phenomenal at producing photo and video, so I wouldn't sell yourself short there. But two, when you get into business, you just have to work with clients you don't want to work with. Like again, I can tell you ICP and work all these perfect things, but if you have a family to feed, that doesn't matter, right? Like you have to put in. But as you evolve as a business, there's tipping points where you need to know when to fire clients, or you need to know when you've outgrown your staff or they've outgrown you. Similar situations. But understanding those evolutions, trying to get there faster is probably a mistake that most of us make, right? Like we do it too slowly, like we're like, oh, well, you start making excuses and you have bias. Well, we're doing really, really good work for them. Well, yeah, but they're toxic, right? There could be a toxic that's just draining your staff and you don't understand the problems, or you have a team member that's causing rifts. But I think in general, like being able to just, start to look at these things and like, how can I expedite? How can I avoid pitfalls? Which is why I like fractionals. Like, this is why I like consultants, because you and I, even with AI, like we're going to see things because of our experience that newer customers or I'm sorry, newer fractionals haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
So we work with lots of go-to-market fractionals. I know tons of these guys. And these people are like ex-CMOs from like the biggest organizations on the planet. And when they are starting out, they're going through the same, like, well, I know everything there is to know about X industry and these guys are like next level genius when it comes to like their experience, but they've never run sales or they've never delegated, they never delegated like customer service or invoicing, like the simple things when it happen, when you get into the fractional market that you have to relearn again. You're like, oh my God, like I know everything there is to know about marketing, but I really am having a hard time being able to invoice somebody or being able to, being able to have a sales conversation. Like
Yeah.
that's usually the hard part for the jump with fractional. So I would still recommend starting to build partnerships, and I would still recommend to go that route. It just takes a while to find the right partners. You got to put food on the table, do what you do best, and see wherever you can, work you hunt. And
Yeah. You I think really hit a big nail on the head there with I'm the best marketer in the world, but I still need to be able to sell and find clients. And w- I I think I just talked about this with, maybe it was Todd Bailey or maybe it was Lisa Boucher, but one of the biggest things that I see for people in any business whether it's you're a contractor who's great at building decks, right? But you suck at the people side, or you're not good at finding new clients. And same thing with fractionals, right? Like one of the most important skills that you have to develop, especially when you're new into being your own person, and being a solopreneur fractional, is your ability to sell. Can you touch on, I mean, you've probably always been great at sales, right?
I'm terrible at sales. I probably still am, but sure.
Come
But
on.
go ahead. Yeah. So
So what was that journey like for you early on with, like, I know your backstory a little bit about how you ended up starting your company, but like when you were doing this, like what was it like for you to start saying to yourself, like, okay, I know marketing, but I need to go find new clients?
yeah, good point. Because I think that's incredibly relevant for any fractional. Is my journey specifically? I don't want to say I had an edge, but I was always an entrepreneur. So before I got into marketing, I've always owned like random businesses ever since I was like 6, selling blackberries to Farmer John. But long story, long Vermont story. But in general, like being an entrepreneur, you have to learn sales, even if you aren't good at them. Aren't good at acquiring clients, you still have to learn building rapport and qualifying and figuring out what to do. Through my journey, I realized that I was stuck at a certain point. And then what I did, lo and behold, is I brought in consultants. I brought in Matt Scarkelli, who I've worked with sales consultants, and then they come in and they refine their and build a process for us. And we're like, you know what? I used to think sales was a dirty word, right? And I was like, I really hate selling stuff. And then like changing your mindset and the framework around like you're helping people and there's a cost to your services and what you do. And guess what? They're going to make even more money when they bring you in. Sandler's not cheap. I brought them in and I'll tell you what, I had like, I'll give you a perfect example. I had the hardest time bringing up budget. It's like, oh, what's your budget to invest in solve this $10 million problem? Well, I don't know. You tell us this, I don't know. But are you okay with, 10 grand a month? Like it's this like weird void of like an era that you don't want to be in. And now I'm like, well, we have a $10 million problem to solve. Like it's going to take, $1 million to 2 to solve that problem. That's going to give you, a 5 to 10x return. Is that something that's feasible? And they'll say, no, that's crazy. It's going to knock me off the chair. And okay, perfect. I know that like they're not ready for us and we're not ready for them. But on the other hand, we're actually setting parameters that's saying, hey, well, like, this is the budget it's going to take for success. We're not just throwing out an arbitrary number. So I just think when you get into an area of sales specifically, like do all the research you can. You're starting out, figure out the nuances, but when you can bring an expert in or adopt some system, it doesn't have to be Sandler, it can be any selling system. There's a billion of them. Really start to get into that process because that's going to expedite the mistakes that you have made in sales. I have made a billion mistakes and I still make mistakes in sales because either I know what to do now. I just may not follow the process because I want to work with this company, or there's something I see that I'm making an excuse to not qualify them or to not go through the right proposal process. But yeah, I don't know if that's what you were asking for specifically, but you tell
No,
me.
I definitely think it's, really any kind of, what's the word? Any kind of glimmer of information as far as sales go, and recognizing that, number one, it's hard. Number two, it's one of the most important things, especially in the beginning for fractional operators, is that you need to be able to sell. And how you define that, I think, is important. You brought up Sandler training. A big shout out to Sandler. Obviously, I'm a fan, and still a practitioner of the Sandler method. It's so would you place a high importance on training for the young fractionals, for people that are, that maybe they were a COO or an HR specialist and they're going to start their own fractional business, and but now they've got to figure out how to sell.
I I think training in general, it doesn't matter what your expertise are in. You certainly need to train on the deficiencies that you don't have. So if I'm not good at invoicing, suck it up, learn invoicing until you can afford to, get a bookkeeper to come in.
Yeah.
If you're not good at sales, go on YouTube, go on the billion sales sources. But I think you have to level yourself up and like you may be an expert here, but down here for the rest of the business, you have to learn as much as possible just to be able to get to a level of revenue where you could start to bring in people. You know what? Like I can learn sales up to X. I hate doing sales. I need to bring in a salesperson. Like, let's make sure that processes are in place and we have enough money to do so. But you still, when you're fractional, you got to do the grinding work. The one mistake I see fractionals make all the time, and is they tend to lean into their expertise. So let's take fractional marketers. They're going to go out and they're going to try to build like an inbound machine. They're going to spend so much time on AI and so much time crafting content and worried about like all of these pretty things to be able to get people to convert. Fun fact, you're brand new to the market. Nobody knows who you are. Yes, you have experience through the wazoo with your resume, but you need to hunt. And that's something that they're not used to. I was like, you don't need content for lead generation. You need content for credibility. Show them you drove 84.8 million. Show them who you were, that you worked with Apple. Show them that you did all these things just as part of your content. So when you're out being like, hey, Mike, let's have a conversation. I think that as soon as you go and check me out, like that stuff is going to resonate. Not like, hey, here's a lead form on this beautiful, lovable, download thing I just made for you. It's just, and again, you go with what you know because you're very good at that. But I'm just saying, like, if you need to put food on the table, you are a hunter and you are going outbound and you need to get very specific about what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And it's not rocket science. I want to work with X company. Who works there? What do I know about them? Know as much as humanly possible. Like their stuff, comment, call them, stop in, send them a handwritten letter. There's all of these like old school things that are coming back into play, but you don't need to talk to 2,000 companies. You don't care about how many people viewed your profile. Care about that's credibility that's going to help you in the sales process. But it's just, you're not a farmer anymore. You're a hunter. And like, you have to get that hunting mentality when you start any business, but especially if you're not coming from sales and you're trying to be a fractional operator. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Hunting is hard.
it's not fun by any means. Like you lose more than you win, but still you win enough to build a really good business. So as long as you can get around that like ego of like, oh, they didn't connect with me on LinkedIn or they didn't answer my phone call or whatever. It's like, okay, they have other stuff going on. Like I don't, I kind of dust that up, but that took me years to get over that ego part. It's like, what do you mean you don't want to do business with me? What do you mean you don't want to take my call? I can help you so much. Now I'm just like, whatever. Like there's more than enough fish in the ocean. We'll just keep fishing.
Yeah. I got to be honest with you. A little confession here. It is only just recently that I've been able to adopt that mentality. Like legit, maybe the last year, maybe 2 years, where previous to that, man, I took everything personally, Chris. Like I like work so hard to get a meeting. You get a meeting, you think it goes great, and then you put a proposal in front of them, and then they ghost you. And then or you put a proposal in front of them and they turned it down flat, right? And it's just like I I took it, so it was so hard, and it's only just the last maybe 2 years that I've been able to say like, all right. And it's funny because back when I was at Sandler, fifth, I don't even know, almost 20 years ago now, I guess. But like that was one of our things was like, so what? Some will, some won't. Someone else will, kind of thing. And it's such a hard thing to really internalize and accept. Is that fair?
It's really hard, 100%, especially when you're the business owner, because it feels like it's a slap in the face, like on what you do and how you operate. Again, we may or may not know that they just don't have the funds to work. Like, hopefully, we fish that out during the sales process. Yeah. There's a billion other criteria. Some people are just unhappy people. There's other scenarios there. But I'm with you. I mean, and again, it's really hard to get over that that ego hit. But I think with the older you get, the more experience, the less S you give about this stuff. Like you look at my LinkedIn, I'd like, I'll post stuff that I like, and there's some stuff that's tactical, but at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm not using it for inbound. I'm not using it for lead generation. I'm using it for credibility. I'm like, do you like me? Do you like that I posted this AI song that I thought was cool about Vikings? Cool. like, if you don't, that's fine. That was a Saturday post, so that wasn't intentional. I'm doing it on a Saturday, ladies and gentlemen. But still,
okay. All right.
that's that's who I am. But I'm like, at the end of the day, your ideal clients should be the people that like you and respect you. And back to Sandler, you're on equitable playing fields. You're not a vendor to them. You're an asset and you're a resource. We're going to be part of your team. We're going to help you grow. It's going to be kumbaya. Let's all do this together. So yeah. Anyway, I digress with the Vikings, so you can cut that part out of the podcast.
No, I'm leaving it as a reminder so I can go back and listen to this AI Viking song. I'm very
Really good. Yeah.
I'm interested. So I know we're getting short on time, Chris, but I a couple other questions I want to ask, and really I'm thinking about the fractional operator that is either just starting, just about to start, or maybe they're in their first year. What are some things that you saw early on that if you had fixed them or hadn't done them or avoided them completely, would have been very helpful in the growth for you and your company?
I think do less is probably the biggest lesson. So when you start out, again, I just said that you have to level up and learn all this stuff in training. So this is going to be kind of contradictory to what I already said, but do less. Don't feel like you have, again, no offense to chambers, but don't feel like you have to go join every chamber or get a Dun and Bradstreet number or go to every networking event. Like go where, like think about things like where are your clients going to be? Like maybe that's on TikTok. Maybe they don't ever listen to TikTok. Like who cares? But be very intentional with your efforts and with your motions to grow your business. Like focus on the bare minimum critical things so your time is spent the best possible. And I'll give you an example. Like our company today, when we attract business and work with clients, we do two things. We have two motions and that's it. One is outbound. We're hunting all the time. And two is events. So we do a lot of events. We'll do a lot of online events. We have podcasting, like all these other things like you do. But it's about building credibility for the outbound. That's all we're doing. And that there's a lot involved in there. But when you reduce the amount you're doing when you're going to market, you can quadruple down on what you're doing. If I was doing inbound and SEO and building a community and networking and trying to develop a product and doing all these other things, I'm spread way too thin, which is a mistake I totally made back in the day. I'm like, I'm going to do everything. I'm going to learn everything. I'm going to figure everything out. So get to the bare minimum critical level, but do less. And that will absolutely give you exponential results. I just had a call with our sales team before this, and I was like, here's the only thing you need to focus on for this week. Do these things, three things, and that's it. I was like, that's going to take you, probably 2 days, but those three things that you're going to do are going to be the best three things, as opposed if I told you to do that and then go do the other 20 things, it would be kind of half-assed, you know what I mean? So it's just dive down and do less.
So it's that addition by subtraction.
Yeah, again, it's hard to do when you start out, and it is, again, hopefully I'm not over time here, but when you start out, everything seems like a good idea. It seems like a good idea to get all these AI subscriptions. I feel like I need it. I feel like I have to be part of this group. I feel like I have to be part of this network. I feel like I have to join the lead generation groups and then commit to these things. So it's just about slowing down and taking your time to analyze the market. But realistically, like, where are your customers? Like that's where you need to live and breathe, as opposed to just the need of like, I'm starting a business. I don't know what I'm doing. And I feel like I have to do all of these things because every single entrepreneur does that. We all kind of go through that, those mistakes of just trying to be everything to everyone. So again, it's not easy. It takes time, but there's plenty of people like you. You just listen to your podcast. You hear it all the time in your podcast. So there's good resources locally, especially that will help you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really being more tactical about what you're doing so that you're not. Go ahead.
Well, it's about being intentional. Yeah. Tactical 100%, but it's about being intentional that you chose those tactics for a reason. So, yeah.
So many things to worry about. One more question for you. Obviously, things are moving fast. Right. We've got,
Sure.
and I hate to continue to say the whole AI thing, but there is a lot of downslope from AI right now and the changes it's producing across the board. Things are moving fast. Technology is changing. Businesses are changing. How do you, as a fractional, stay in front of all of the changes that are happening and how they affect your business and the pivots you have to make? Like, what does that look like for Six Marketing?
I think it's really tough because AI is amazing, but it is such a distraction at the same time because you feel like you have to learn all these different systems and like, well, I was on Gemini and now I have to learn Claude and this is like, this is the new horse that's winning the race. It's really hard, but again, it could be a distraction. I would almost say, again, do less, like pick a system, pick an area, like stay up to speed. Don't be a hermit and go to the mountains. But understand what's going on with the market. But realistically, like we operate manufacturing all the time, the manufacturing conversations, we need to know AI up to a point that manufacturers know AI. What are manufacturers buying with AI? Job augmentation, operational efficiency. Now, our capabilities are way over here with AI. Like we're building agents who are building their own agents and doing all this crazy stuff. But who we're serving, we're going in and be like, you know what? Let's make sure your meeting's recorded and those notes are going to your CRM and that your sales team isn't working on spreadsheets all the time. And like, we're doing like, I don't say the minimum, but this is where our ICP is in the market. They're just getting up to speed on AI. So we work with them there. So again, you have to know this if you want to build out this comprehensive model like our strategy is. But we also know our market. We know this is what is valuable to them now. Not like we're going to build you this agentic system where agents are building agents and there's multi-human, multi-agents. Like that would they would blow their mind, would completely blow in a bad way for us if we said that, for the market that we're serving.
So is it like, do you worry that you are not moving as fast as the market? Actually, let me rephrase that. For fractional operators that need to continue to evolve their business as things change, like at some point, do you have to say like, you do not have to move as fast as things are changing, or should that be an ongoing concern for people?
It's impossible to move as fast as things are moving. Like just with quantum and all these other things that are coming in, it is impossible to stay up to speed with Claude Mythos and all these other things that are coming out. So you're never going to keep up. Like if you want to be, even the AI experts can't keep up at this point. But use it enough again and stay in the news. Like don't be a hermit. Be enough so you can use it in your everyday business so it's valuable. But just diving in and trying to learn everything possible about this world is not good. I just think that like when you're starting out, that's a time waster. That can be a business ender if you're trying to craft the perfect agent, to create the perfect landing page, to create the perfect copy, to create the perfect whatever, as opposed to be looking at Mike's company and be like, yo, here's what I see. Like use your brain. Like you're a fractional, you're an expert. You already know this world. It may not be as fast. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm not saying that like you don't want to train the AI because you certainly want to do that. But what I'm saying is what problem are you trying to solve? If you're trying to put the food on the table, pick up a phone and do a cold call that none of us want to do. Send them a letter. What AI has done is it's increased the opportunity not only to be efficient and to be augment your job and be awesome and all these other things. It's also opened the door for traditional ways of doing things. So all of a sudden direct mail's like a thing again. All of a sudden phone calls are back on the radar. Pattern interrupts. That's all we talk about on a daily basis. Open your email. 90% of your email is AI garbage. 99% of us don't pay attention to that. And I think the one random thing that you do, or the one thing that's completely different from anybody else, again, write a handwritten note to a CEO. And you would be surprised at how much farther that's going in today's world because of AI. So do what everybody else isn't doing, but don't ignore it.
Yep. It's, I feel like it's a trap that you almost feel like you have to continually reinvent your business and change your plan based on all these emerging technologies, where you should just continue to execute your plan, but be mindful of the things that are changing in case there is a pivot you need to make. But I almost feel like there could be the idea that people have to constantly make these new pivots based on emerging technologies. And what that does is how you phrased it multiple times in this conversation, is it becomes a distraction and actually pulls you away from growing the business and executing on your plan.
Well, if you're in that world and you need to leverage technology for whatever you're doing, then certainly but yeah, 100%. It is a distraction and it can be, I was on a podcast with someone recently and they said it could be a business ender. And I've never thought it. I was like, oh, It's like, I didn't actually think about that. So, but at the end of the day, like, use the tool and have it augment what you do. But at the end of the day, still know what you do and focus on that area. And whatever that is, if there's no AI involved in who you're trying to target, and it's about putting a road sign because you're a fractional lawn care guy or something, I don't know what the scenario is, do that. Don't learn Claude. Go out and put your sign. And then at night, take a couple Claude courses or do something, that we can to place the sign in a better area. I don't know. I'm making this up, but
I I I know we got to wrap up, but I would be remiss if I didn't dig into what you just said about it could be a business ender. What do you mean?
because of people are so over engineering with AI at this point, they're trying to master and they're trying to have it do all the work. So it's killing human intelligence at some level. So the people that aren't, don't have the acumen and haven't had the years and years of experience, again, you're just starting out, you're hustling, you're trying to do everything possible. There's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is you're not learning. You're learning how to use the tool. You're not learning the struggle of like failed sales. You're not you're not learning like, how to do invoicing appropriately or how to build a landing page appropriately. You're just using the tool. And then when it breaks, you're like, oh no, what do I do? Because you never learned it the right way possible. And it feels like I'm the old guy being like, get off my lawn. But it's not that. It's just that it's like, take your time. But what it can end a business because people they're so over engineering their business at this point that they're focusing on scaling to what I said earlier, to thousands of people when they need to talk to 10, or I forget which company it was. That consultant launched, like, it was like some enterprise level company. They spent 500 million in Claude credits in 1 month and they didn't know it. Because they didn't have the governance in place or the employees, like there's shadow AI and all these things that are happening. But they didn't have the right things in place because the company is moving too quickly. And this is enterprise, and enterprise businesses move deathly slow. We all know that. But they didn't put the regulations in place to prevent that. And it cost them $500 million in 1 month. Like, I don't know how many companies that can sustain that. There's not many on this planet, but apparently this is one of them.
Yeah. I wonder what their gross revenue is on a monthly, yearly basis that they could lose 500 million in 1 month.
Yeah, I can't imagine it with Elon, but I feel like you have to have that level of money to be able to sustain a hit like that.
Yeah,
But I don't.
yeah.
That's not my world yet.
All right. Chris, if people want to learn more about Six Marketing, about what you guys are doing, maybe they want to check out becoming a strategic partner or just connecting with you guys in general, how do they find Six Marketing?
Good question. So you can just go to our website, six.marketing, spelled out as you can see on the screen pretty easily. LinkedIn's going to be your best play for me. There's lots of Christopher Ryan's. Just Google Christopher Ryan, Six Marketing, and I'll come up on LinkedIn. But I'm happy to meet with anybody and have any conversation. Happy to, like, one of the things that I love to do is to help new entrepreneurs in general, or just people like understand where to go. I'm not looking to do business with them. I'm looking to be able to help them. I'm part of EO because, like, one of the most rewarding things to me is to see the people graduate and see the young entrepreneurs or the new entrepreneurs get to different stages. And I just think it's kind of like when you run a business and you have interns. I wish I was an intern back in the day, and I wish there was some entrepreneur that was like that helped me through these loopholes, because I just think it's a much better life for everybody. So anyway, I'm open for any conversation anybody wants to have. And then you can find me on LinkedIn or on the website.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on, sir. I appreciate you. I appreciate the time that you spent with us today and the insight that you're giving our audience. Amazing.
I expect some Viking music, but yeah, thank you. Thank
Yeah, I'll
you.
see what I'll put that in note for Taylor when she's producing the podcast.
Yeah.
Viking music. Thanks everybody for listening. Of course, you can find this episode, all episodes, on our website at Hourglass SaaS. You can also sign up for our newsletter, which is for Fractional Operators. Each week, we're sending out a curated list of content from around the internet that we think will be helpful for you in your fractional business. And yeah, you can find us on Apple, Rumble, Spotify, YouTube, all the places people typically get podcasts these days. And thanks for listening, and you'll hear from us next week.